Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Mindful Mornings. I'm Charlotte, and I'll be facilitating the session for today. If you weren't able to join us in our previous session, you can watch it in our YouTube channel, Beingness. Yesterday, one of the topics we discussed was acceptance. What is acceptance really? And when are we supposed to accept? One truth about it is whether it's acceptance, gratitude, or any of the virtues we'll be talking in the next few days, we need to practice it. Hence, one of the things we'll be touching today is patience, practice in patience. But before we dive into our conversation, open conversation, let's prepare ourselves and start with our meditation.
As Charlotte said yesterday, we talked about acceptance, and it seems to be an endless well of exploration in the spiritual practice to understand what acceptance is and what the importance of it is. It seems fundamental to this kind of spiritual practice. And one of the building blocks of acceptance, you could say one of the Russian nested dolls inside of acceptance, could be patience. Patience is a virtue, they say. Why did they say that? When I was young, I wasn't patient at all. I wanted to make up my own rules, didn't want to read any of the fine print. I wanted to just rush from place to place, get there. We talked about traffic yesterday. Maybe I was guilty of a minor speeding infraction or two in my youth because I wanted to get there. Don't stop me. We're going now. Patience with traffic? No. I'm just going to go on the shoulder, or I'm going to take an alternate route, or somehow make my own rules. If I had a flying car, I would have done that. I had no patience whatsoever. I didn't want to be conscribed to somebody else's system. Don't tell me how to move. Don't tell me what speed to go. Don't make me slow down when I've already got some motive energy, some momentum. Don't cramp my style. You look at old people, they move real slow, don't they? I always thought it was just because they were infirm. I think it's because they found out something about the power of patience. They've graduated from being the hare, and now they're the tortoise. That doesn't seem very sexy. The tortoise just slogging along, just get there, buddy. Let's go. Come on. The hare's like, let's do this. But the hare burns out real fast. Gets bored, has ADD, goes on to the next thing. The tortoise just sticks it out. And he'll get there, she'll get there. Soon enough, inexorably, they will get there. The hare may not. One of the moments of really cracking the code when I was going down to visit family in Taos, New Mexico, and from Colorado, and I was driving through these canyons, wanting to go fast, because after all, I made my own rules. I don't need to listen to police officers or the law or the government. I can figure out what I want to do on my own. Thank you very much. But I thought maybe for the first time in my life, I was probably in my 20s, I had already had this massive Kundalini awakening where I was electrocuted by the Divine Mother in a dream. And was transported to a new dimension. One of the new opportunities was to just say, hey, what happens if I actually go the speed limit? It seems like such a joke. 45 miles an hour when I could be going 65 comfortably and there's no one around. I'm not going to bother anybody. I just got to get there. I just would slow down. I was like going into a different dimension. The speed limit was just like, whoa, so slow. But I drove it for a little while and I realized, wow, this is kind of like easy. Once the dimensional shift happened and I kind of settled into actually that divine timing, was quite beautiful. There was almost like a force took over. I was being conveyed to my destination. Time fell away a little bit. And so instead of using my foot and the accelerator and my drive to get there, to go as fast as I could without causing injury or accident, when I gave that up, there was the force, you could call it. The force took over. Use the force. And I was just conveyed along. And I found myself in this timeless, beautiful, spaceless space. And I got where I was going, and I was like, wow, that was really easy. It takes more effort. You burn more calories. You burn more, get more brain damage. You burn more gas, actually, if you try to go too fast over the speed limit. If you've never tried it, I know there's people out there who've never tried it before. Try to go the speed limit on purpose. It's pretty well calibrated to divine timing, because the roads are laid out according to width, length, how many cars are on the road. Everything's kind of calibrated, right, by the powers that be to set the right speed limit. The Autobahn conditions are different than a school zone in the middle of a city. So if you really subscribe to those strong recommendations that are made, there's something a little bit divine in those. If you have patience, paradoxically, you get there much faster because you lose your sense of time. You're not counting every second. You can step outside of time because you're not using your ego to get there. You're using the force to get there. That's 5D awareness instead of 3D awareness. Being patient with traffic, we talked about traffic yesterday. It's a wonderful metaphor for a lot of spiritual practice. If you're on the road, someone tries to cut you off. My old self, my young self, bratty renegade, would try to punish them, tailgate them a little bit, give them a little chin music, maybe a choice gesture or two. Now I just back up and let them in. I'm not like, oh, what a travesty of justice. Look what you just did to me. How could you do that to me? How could you take advantage? Yeah. I just let them in. And that creates space. Physical space, it creates spiritual space. Because now instead of tensing up, lurching toward reactionary way of being, you're having some compassion for this other person trying to get in. They're just trying to get there too. They can get there 1 second ahead of you. You're not going to lose anything. Let them in. You don't know their story. Why were they so aggressive about cutting me off? Who knows? Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they have difficulties with sight. Maybe you were in their blind spot. Maybe it was totally unintentional. And if it was intentional, so fine. They've got an issue with the world. That's cool. Let them do that. That's their karma. Anytime anybody does something bad to me, says, something foul or does something aggressive or mistreats me, does something wrong, I just let them go. Let them do their thing. That's their business. Ramana Maharshi had a wonderful, there's an anecdote from Arthur Osborne, one of the first Western devotees who went and stayed in Tiruvannamalai, South India, at the ashram of Ramana Maharshi, my teacher, one of my teachers. And while they were still living up on the mountain before the big ashram was built, they just had a little humble dwelling, him and a few devotees, and these bandits came through one night, brandishing sticks, yelling at everybody, demanding the money, give us food, give us the money. And Bhagavan's like, I'm sorry, we're just humble sadhus. We don't have anything. We would be happy to give it to you if we did, but we don't. Look around. And they were mad because there was nothing there apparently. And one of them actually had the gall and ignorance to take that stick and hit Bhagavan on the left leg, strike him in the leg. And in very much turn the other cheek spirit, he's put forward his other leg and said, you can hit this one too. We still don't have anything to give you right now. But it was like that moment we talked about yesterday of Jesus being on the cross and looking down at his tormentors with compassion, with patience, with love. So they hit him with the stick, ran off. And one of the big devotees, Kunju Swami, I think it was, said, Bhagavan, we got to go get those guys. We got to go punish them. And he said, don't worry about that. Let them go do their thing. You know, they're criminals. That's their dharma. We're sadhus. That's our dharma. Let them do them. We'll do us. And he explained that the word for strike or blow, puja, is the same as the word in Hindi for worship. That's having gratitude even in apparent misfortunes, even in insult and injury, recognizing that that's actually worship. That's an act of God. And they were worshiping in their own unschooled way. And that's how I kind of try to treat it if anybody does me wrong. Just let them go. They'll carry off my iniquities in the four directions. They're doing me a favor. But if I chase them down, pardon me, sir or madam, please, do you know what you just did? And just kind of get entangled in their bad karma, that becomes my bad karma. I take it on. I start collecting grievances. I start grinding on stuff. I start getting sick, turn into a bitter, evil person. I don't want to have that happen. That's their path. Let them do that. So if somebody cuts you off on the highway, the mechanics of it is the graciousness of letting somebody in like that, regardless of their intention, the spaciousness of the heart, the generosity to do that. It takes a lot, actually, to really slow down and let somebody in instead of like pushing up to the next car so they can't get in. You can't get in, huh? It actually unleashes a little bit of gratitude in their heart, and you can feel it flow. And the Shakti, the Holy Spirit that moves, starts to become the traffic. The traffic starts to move. If you haven't tried that, it's just a mechanics. It's not a flighty spiritual philosophy. It's just the mechanics of how things actually operate out in the world when you experiment with this. It's really fun. We talked about how to liberate yourself from traffic jams yesterday by doing something similar, just being patient in that moment, accepting. So what is patience? It's allowing divine timing, not my timing. I don't know what time things should happen. I'm ignorant of the ways of the world. Only the Divine Mother, only God knows when and how things should happen. Let me take their cue instead of taking my cue, because I don't know anything. Oh, isn't it about time this and that and the other thing happened? You're just binding yourself up in, discomfort for no reason. You sit there in agitation, waiting for something that, waiting for your late plane because they're still taxiing on the runway. Oh, they're still taxiing on the runway. Oh no. Well, okay, so that's not going to change by, you fretting your way. You can't fret them into the terminal. You can only fret yourself into sickness and disease and discomfort. So just let it happen in its own timing. And then the great gift is that often things do go faster or more graciously, gracefully, easier. Often, maybe always, if you can apply that. It's actually an exercise in the dantians, or the lower chakras. That's where you feel that tension. Why do you think people get all this sickness in their belly? Because they're tensed up down there all the time. They're contracting. They're taking energy that should be flowing through, and they're actually solidifying, calcifying, turning it into tumors. People say, just breathe, take it easy. It's a good advice. Breathe into your belly. Just relax. You're not going to die. Nothing bad's going to happen if you don't race to the finish line right now. That's why Bhagavan was so great. I never had the joy of being with him in the physical presence. He died in 1950. That was 2 years before my mother was born, so it was a generation back. You see archival footage of him, and you read stories like the aforementioned Arthur Osborne's great book, The Path of Self-Realization. What it was like to be an Oxford-educated writer living with his family in Tiru when there was very scant few Western devotees out there. Really beautiful. And he talked about Ramana Maharshi. He says it's easy to recognize the master. We sort of picture them in miracle or transfiguration. It's harder to think about them in the technique of daily living. And that's what Bhagavan employed, the technique of daily living, in which there's slowness, deliberateness, ease. Things happen in their own timing. I don't have an agenda, this, that, and the other thing, check all these boxes off. There's a point at which anybody has a question or a reflection or an insight about patience, please type it into the YouTube live stream. Type it into the chat in Zoom. Raise your hand. I think one of the things that meditation teaches us is patience. You got to be very patient to sit there quietly and let all the voices in your mind still, because it could take days or months or years to do that. And even decades later, you may find that your mind wanders. It takes patience to come back to the still center, 0-point energy of the pure Akash, out of which everything emerges. And allow yourself to become that everythingness. Charlotte was the one that devised these questions and these topics for this week. I thought they were really well grouped together. Charlotte, can you remind us what the rest of the week looks like?
Tomorrow we'll have compassion. On Thursday, it's humility. And on Friday, it's courage. Nisargadatta talked about a sort of automatic quality to this lived experience. Just like a movie that's pre-baked and it's just rolling, leaving him very much out of the picture in terms of will, guiding. He's just along for the ride. And you say, boy, that sounds pretty impotent. You're just going to sit in the back seat while everybody else does everything. Well, you're talking about a realized master. So if that's the way he does it, maybe that's the way I can try to do it. Patience and learning what that film is, learning the pace at which things should go. Whenever I try to plan things and make it happen and stuff, I can't really do much of anything. I can't really knit anything together. Only God can knit things together with perfect synchronicity and grace and miraculous ease.
So can I follow that model? Can I follow Amma, the hugging saint model? Can I follow Jesus's model? Can I follow the Buddha's model, sitting under the Bodhi tree, waiting for enlightenment to dawn on him and getting his wish? I'm gonna sit here and wait. I'm not gonna go grab it. Oh, go out and seize the day. Take advantage of your hours. Go make it happen. Work hard. Nope. Work less hard. Hard work is a fool's errand. You want results or you want work? Those are different. You can get results in a trice, zero effort, or you can put your nose to the grindstone and struggle overtime 6 days a week for years and not get it. Instantaneous fruition of your Dharma in the moment by allowing, not trying. I know Gabriel's widely read in some of the figures we've talked about. I would be curious to know, which one do you think of those figures or those that you follow and pay attention to and care about is the exemplar of patience?
I've never seen live video of him just looking in his eyes, but I think Ramana Maharshi and his stillness and his just resting in beingness, he had nowhere to be. He had no agenda. I don't think he ever left his ashram, and miracles would just arise into being all around him. He didn't need to try to do anything. By the virtue of him not having a plan and not having a future destination and not needing to get anywhere, around him beings, so many miracles were happening to so many beings. And it really is like that. If we give no thought for the morrow, the miracles that arise into being are so much better than rushing to get somewhere. But it takes some practice to verify that for yourself. But once you do, why would you actively try to do anything when you could just rest in your being at peace and the awareness of the miracles that are arising into being?
What are the practices we use to do that?
For myself, on my journey, first transforming the inner voice. What I came to find when I looked inward and tried to analyze what the issue was that I was constantly rushing because I had this inner voice that was constantly attacking myself. Like you said, why is this person cutting me off? This shouldn't be this way. Oh, the injustice. And life was just miserable because I was constantly attacking the creator, of the light of God in my heart, my highest self, who was bringing the creation into being. So for myself, there was this like a stair-step method of first transforming that inner voice from the voice of judgment and doubt and shame into this voice that, traffic would arise, and I'd actively use my inner voice to say to, as I saw it, the wounded child in my heart that wanted to get moving, didn't want there to be traffic. I'd actively use my inner voice to say to my heart words like, I'm here for you. I love you. You're not alone. The outer world's crazy, but in our shared heart is a place of peace that we can just relax in. And I was living in solitude when I started doing this, and I just did it because it felt so good. I just started to do it 24/7. And after about 2 months of doing it, all of a sudden my inner voice just started to automatically do it on its own. something I didn't particularly like would arise in the outer world. And then all of a sudden the Divine Mother, as I saw it, the voice of the Divine Mother or the Divine Father would arise and just say such loving words and help me relax and be at peace. But then again, once I started to do that, the miracles just started. At first it was synchronicities and then outright miracles, and they just became so constant that I began to verify that this was the way to be. Eventually to try to help undertake practices of like just sitting there all day with nothing to do in oneness with God in my heart. I wouldn't think, little crass, forgive me, but I wouldn't think, oh, I have to get up. I'm living in solitude. Oh, I have to get up to go pee. I should really get up. I just would sit there in stillness. And at some point my body would just get up and go, the creation arising into being would be of something like that. I wouldn't think, oh, I really need to go into town one of these days and get food. I just would wait and see what would happen. I'd even start driving and not really be sure where I was going. And eventually you start to glimpse this state of awareness with no present or past, where you're just awareness of the experiences rising into being. Forgive me, I'm dog sitting and there are some dogs over here that are playing, but I just be awareness of all these miracles arising into being. And it's something that you have to have faith in initially, but then you begin to be able to verify for yourself. And truly the quality of life is so much sweeter, so full of miracles. Forgive me, I'm going to mute in a second, but anyways, that's my share, and blessed to speak with you, David. I'm going to mute.
Okay. Synchronicity and miracles. That's something that you don't put on your calendar and plan, is it?
No, you don't. It's truly like the Bible says. It truly is. Give no thought for the morrow. Look at I don't remember the exact, the lilies of the field.
Fowl of the air, and yeah.
It's truly just amazing. They're timeless miracles too. It's not this creation of linear time. It's just these miracles. It doesn't matter whether you and I are talking now or talking some other time. It's here you are floating in outer space, giving us that song. It's a timeless miracle,
It gets to the realm of doingness versus karma yoga, maybe. Doing rather than allowing. If I think I'm the doer, having to stockpile all these rations and resources, and I don't take the example of the lilies of the field and the fowl of the air and the squirrels of the forest, and allow God to give me provision in every moment, then I become like a doomsday prepper. And nothing against doomsday preppers. I know some of them, great people. They spend a lot of energy packing away dried food rations that are going to eventually rot in buckets because Armageddon never comes unless they bring it themselves. It's like Robert Kiyosaki says, why are you saving money when they're printing money? I've got $1,000. I'm going to take it over to the bank. Here you go, Mr. or Mrs. Banker. Please hold this for me. Give me less than 1% interest over the next year. Well, it tracks like this while inflation is going like that. Meantime, the banker can leverage that $1,000 into $10,000. And I sit while it just rots in the bank thinking, oh, you better go save your money. Money is fluid. It's currency. It's like a current of a river. It needs to flow. You need to have an open-handed relationship with money. You need to be able to give it generously and receive it without expectation and without miserliness. Give and receive. Putting in a bank account somewhere excessively. It's okay to have some, a few months cash on hand just in case something goes haywire or everything, doomsday does come or some catastrophe or everything just puddles in a pool of matrix code. I would rather have the money go to work for me instead of just sit trapped there and encased in amber, where I can pluck it out sometime in the future. There is no future. If I'm truly patient and I get in that zone that Gabriel talked about of allowance, then I get my allowance. And it's not $3.25 for mowing the lawn when you're 6. It's the divine allowance, divine provision, everything you could possibly ever need. In abundance that's not obnoxious and overmuch, it's just comfortable and easy. To some degree, you can't plan for that. I know it might sound a little bit irresponsible to say that. Robert Kiyosaki again. Oh, all you people, you're raised with backward thinking. Go to school, work hard at school so you can get a good job, well-paying job, go buy a house, get out of debt, invest in the stock market, pay your taxes. That's what a good soldier does. That's what a good slave does. Work really hard so you can get a job. I'm not for it. That's your bag, good for you. That's fine. But we're in a day and age in which you get to invent yourself. There's never been more tools at your disposal to be able to manufacture your own reality and not wait for somebody out of a classified ad to tell you how to behave, where to be, what to do, and when. Nope. I lost that a long time ago, gratefully. And I had to be patient with the process of letting the trappings of expectation fall away, the trappings of knowing that paycheck's coming. Used to wait tables, we called it the golden handcuffs. 20 years ago, if you made $100 a night, that was pretty good. Even still, you're talking about like barely brushing the poverty line. And there you are, just like in the most superheated, challenging circumstances ever, having to step and fetch it. For anybody who tells you, go this way, go that way, jump, don't jump, bring me this, do it now. No, we don't have to do that anymore. You say, well, what about security? I don't subscribe to that. I don't think there is such a thing as security. I think the real security is what Gabriel described, where you find yourself in just the divine flow in every moment. You trust it, and God provides for you. That's the real security. not ferreting things away in the corner.
I also blessed to share, as I see life, as I experience it, I rest frequently in meditation, which to me is resting in stillness, resting in deep sleep without dreaming, as I see it. To take the time, we keep wanting to come in and have a new dream and have a new dream and have a new dream without forgetting the old dreams.
Huh.
Truly blessed to just sit in stillness, not with any activity, not trying to do anything, but just to rest in deep sleep without dreaming, to forget all the previous dreams, because there seems to be an underlying nature to creation that if you still remember the past experiences, then the new experiences follow this linear timeline of these. But if you can just absolutely let go and rest, patiently rest, and it's actually blissful when you get, as you know, David, when you get, it's the most blissful state of being. But when you can rest in deep sleep without dreaming and just let everything go, let all those other dreams dissolve back into unformed consciousness, then again, at first it's faith, but then the verification of the dreams of timeless dreams of miracles that arise into being. Pretty soon you can't even imagine living in that time-bound, rapid fashion. I need to do way, because it doesn't work. It just leads to karmic struggle and suffering. And once you kind of crack the code, come to this understanding about the nature of creation and how it all comes into being, then patience it's just intuitive. Why would I think? Why would I try to do when I can just surrender and rest in God and be awareness of so many beautiful miracles arising into being, like this blessed present moment? Thank you.
And people say, oh, are you just going to go sit on a mountain or sit in a cave and just, reside in bliss and to the exclusion of all the troubles and woes of your fellow human beings? I think it all goes into the record. I believe there's only one of us.
May I speak on that for a moment?
Please. Yeah.
Our true nature is unformed consciousness. As I experience it, we're we're this infinite vast expanse in which these arms and these legs and this torso come into being, and the rest of creation. Our true nature is consciousness. If consciousness is full of thinking and to-do lists and all this kind of thing, then the dreams, again, that arise into being are dreams of struggle and suffering. Lots of light, lots of beautiful things, but also lots of trouble. And that's what, for all the beings in the dream, when I look out at the wars in the world, when I look out at the struggle and suffering in the world, it's in my heart to go sit in solitude and purify consciousness, because I've verified and am quite certain that if I can purify consciousness, then the creation, the dreams arising into consciousness will be of miracles where all beings are at peace. The greatest good we can do as consciousness is to rest in stillness. That's the greatest act of bodhicitta, to give up your individual self to rest as unformed consciousness, so that the creation arising in consciousness is of unconditional love and infinite peace and unending goodness. We literally have the power to transform the world. Sitting in stillness is not doing. It's transforming creation so that all beings may be at peace. Or at least that's the way I seem to be living my life.
Yeah.
For sure.
How do you circle the square between the notion that suffering is grace, the notion that only through struggle and strife and deep challenge, rigorous curriculum of this life, do we attain a peace that we've earned? how do you circle that square with the hope that eventually people will find themselves in that post-apocalyptic state that you describe, in which there is, the miracles are the daily bread, the peace and comfort and sweetness and delight of being are the daily bread. Does that preclude them from doing the work? Are you doing the work for them? Or are they the ones who are doing the work for you, and they no longer have to do the work for you because you've already gotten there?
From my vantage point, as consciousness, I'm speaking from the vantage point of consciousness right now. It's up to me. It is ultimately up to myself as consciousness. The dream will be of beings healing into oneness, but I sit in stillness and meditation. I don't really think about it, but I sit in stillness and meditation to end the suffering and struggle for all beings. But of course, we all, in every dream, you think it's your dream. At first you go around trying to help people or do things, a dream of struggle and suffering, the nightmarish dream. But then at some point you realize, wait a minute, this is a dream. And if I awaken, then the struggle and suffering ends. And it turns out that if you can rest in deep sleep from dreaming for a while, then the dream turns into a dream, new dreams of miracles. But in a sense, you're not really in the dream. You're just awareness of the dream of all these beings playing in states of joy and peace and love. But the struggle is necessary. I'm sorry, I'm being a little wordy, but the struggle is necessary. The struggle, when you become separated from yourself, when the dreams turn karmic, struggle will arise in the dream. And it's like the tension in an elastic band. The struggle is what ultimately drops you to your knees and compels you to go inward to your heart and find your way back home. But it's entirely possible to dream dreams of unending goodness and not dreams of struggle. But the struggle is divine love from God. It's so hard to see that, but it's necessary. The struggle is divine love from God that compels us to turn away from the outer created realm and find our way back home so that we can return to the Garden of Eden or Pure Land or dreams of unending goodness, so that all beings in the dreams may be at peace.
Yeah, and it's a great point, because just because the mechanics are as I described them before, only through struggle, only through strife, only through suffering am I reborn into my own grace, am I reborn into my own fruition, am I born into ease and delight because I earned it. That's just the mechanics of this dream. And it's a point, it's very well taken. Doesn't mean that's a limitation in consciousness. That's just one simulacrum. It could be that we are liberated from cause and effect, and the before and after of suffering and grace. And if all beings are just a manifestation of myself anyway, and I have attained perfect Pure Land consciousness that you describe, I should look out into the world and not see those manifestations of war and famine and ugliness and wretched conditions. It's just hard for me to disabuse myself of seeing the beauty of the lotus emerging from the mud. People in certain cultures even call it that. Get out the mud. Wow, that's a really tough life. That's a really tough neighborhood. That's a really, gangs happening, gunshots popping off like bubble wrap, police presence everywhere, no food, jungle. And you're just faced with these insurmountable seeming obstacles of heat and pressure and stuckness and danger, real danger. And because of that, now you just crash through obstacles. There are no obstacles. Obstacles disappear. There's a smoothness. There's just a cadence. There's just a swing that starts to happen because you earned it. I could make everybody in the world a great piano player right now. Okay, play Chopin's something, something nocturne. Boom, you don't have to practice. You're just there. Go play it. Have fun. But what makes it worthwhile, and I'm not trying to push back too far on what you're saying. I'm just saying what makes it worthwhile is struggling with those scales, sitting there with your piano teacher over your shoulder, cracking your knuckles, struggling with the scales, just a plain C scale on the piano and having to wrap that thumb underneath and the really tortured things that you're putting your musculature in. And it's just hard. It's just, feels terrible. Practicing. Pretty soon you can run that scale not too bad. And you're like, oh, wow, I did it correct one time. Oh, that must have just been an accident. That must have been just a little parlor trick. I better try it again. And then you mess up. But then you link 2 of them together. And then you get 5 together. Then you get 10, then 100. A student practices until she gets it right. A master practices until she can't get it wrong. That's my job. My job is to practice. The people. It's their job to practice. It's their job to earn it. They got to be embedded in those scales, that practice, that trying, those trials, that suffering. Because then they can start channeling divine lightning. Any creative impulse just goes whoosh and becomes music. It goes straight from the divine through the crown and out through the hands, and it becomes music or the breath. The consilience and the perfect harmony have been earned, and they're all the sweeter because of that. And I just go, what if I had some sort of magic power to liberate everybody, all 8 billion people at this moment, where they could just live in peace and happiness and sort of dance through the meadow? Would I really do it? Would I subtract the beauty of the struggle from them? I think about that sometimes.
If I might add or say, David, like I agree with you. Like in the times, it didn't always seem it at the time, but in the times of the deepest struggle, the inner communion with the Divine Mother, with God, the necessity to just chant endlessly, to that light of God in my heart, and to feel just that ever still warmth in my heart. When the struggle starts to go away, there is a little bit of longing to be back in that state of struggling with the divine love, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Where's the obstacles? What happened? This is too easy.
I don't have an easy answer, except to say that in a sense, we're not even doing it. It's just all unfolding as it will. Struggle just takes on a new meaning. I live an interesting life. I feel really blessed. I'm currently in this beautiful home, but typically I live in my car in the wilderness. It gets cold. Things that I used to find were struggle aren't struggle anymore. And even if something bad happened, I broke my leg or something happened, there's also these understandings about the nature of the underlying somatic sensations that the struggle brings up. I won't go too much. I spoke of it for a second yesterday, but if you just feel these sensations, the jhanas of Buddhism, all these somatic sensations that are anxiety, that were fear, that were loneliness, when you suddenly realize that these are the forces that are pulling you into oneness, then struggle might arise, that traffic jam or somebody cutting you off or the cop pulling you over for speeding in the school zone or whatever, but I'm just kidding, but when that happens, I'm so grateful, because it's bringing to the surface the somatic sensation that if I just turn awareness in and feel it, turns into the most beautiful love of God pulling me into oneness. And I don't know, on the spiritual path, before there used to just be struggle and suffering. Now struggle and suffering, I see it with new eyes. And but ultimately, it's not even about me or what's going on. It's about transforming this creation so that all beings may be at peace. There's a reason we really like National Geographic and those sky views of like coming over the animals grazing on it. That's more of what Pure Land and the Garden of Eden are like. It's just not time. It's just timeless miracles. The golden leaves of the aspen trees that we just had recently, or you're sitting by a bubbling brook, or being with these beautiful dogs that are at my feet. Just timeless miracles arising into being. The struggle's beautiful, it's necessary, but we're ready. Let's end the wars. Let's end the suffering. May all beings be at peace. It's entirely possible. We stand on the shoulders of all these great masters. The Garden of, they showed us the way, but we haven't made it to the Garden of Eden. It's up to ourself to unify in oneness so that all beings may be back in the Garden of Eden again.
Amen. Charlotte, you want to take us out?
That was really powerful. I enjoyed listening to the both of you. Yes, so that ends our session for today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next session tomorrow. But before we end, we invite you to listen to take a couple of minutes to listen to some music before we dive into our separate ways, our own activities throughout the day. And we hope you remember to take patience with you throughout the day and spread the light wherever you go, whoever you meet. Thank you.
Thank you.